International brand Crown Plaza will operate the five-star hotel Mziuri Gardens in Ajara with the investment of 85 million Georgian laris. The project is implemented with British investments, press service of the Ajara government reports.
Independent consulting company Rambol will conduct environmental audit report, environmental impact assessment of Namakhmani HPP Cascade project. The investor company Enka Renewables reports.
TBC Bank has received the 2020 Trade Finance Award for excellent cooperation from Commerzbank, a leading international commercial bank with branches and representative offices in almost 40 countries.
Over 95,000 Georgian citizens have registered for the seasonal employment program in Germany, while the German side has only published 300 vacancies. Consequently, more than 300 people are competing for each vacancy to this point.
This is The Checkpoints, hosted and co-authored by Elena Kvanchilashvili. And myself, I'm Georgi Sakadze. It is Sunday and we have gathered in the studio of Forbes Georgia to tell you more about business and economics in Georgia and worldwide.
10 p.m. it is, and the first news to share is definitely about the start of the vaccination process. Finally, 200,000 people, including med personnel and some other risk groups, are set for their first jabs of AstraZeneca already next week. The process of gradual delivery of vaccines takes off to the full extent. We will have a stage-by-stage supply of vaccines in Georgia, the Minister of Health, Ekaterina Tikaradze, said, summoning the special press conference to air the news. After their first jab of vaccine, the second one of the same people is planned in about 6 to 12 weeks. This is the time when the minister says another dose of AstraZeneca will enter the country. As for the Pfizer vaccine, the minister assures us that the final date, end of March, is still in place, but the government tries to have the vaccine delivered even earlier.
On the background of this very important information, indeed, Elena, we have still to mention, and I have read this news also on our English language agency, bm.g, that the Danish head authority on Thursday halted the use of the AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine for 2 weeks. You will probably agree that many have elaborated on this news, spreading doubts on the effectiveness of the vaccine. What's your take on all of this?
I basically have one answer here, Georgi, and our Forbes Health platform has been stating it on so many levels that there is a desperate need for the informational campaign. Citizens of Georgia have the right to make an informed choice. Today, I think they lack sufficient trusted information about the vaccine. Anti-vaxxer attitudes are not only in Georgia but globally, which makes it difficult to dig through the vast volumes of misinformation and fake news. As an editor-in-chief of the agency, I fully realize the need for such news and information. As for the news that you have mentioned particularly, Georgi, it follows reports of serious cases of blood clots among vaccinated people, a statement read. However, the authorities stopped short of saying there was a direct link between the vaccine and the blood clots at the time being. It is currently not possible to conclude whether there is a link. We are acting early. It needs to be thoroughly investigated, Danish Health Minister Magnus Heunicke said on Twitter. We are following this news, Georgi, closely and provide the updates as available.
And let me remind our readers to follow us both on BMG and Forbes.g for more news and analysis on this and many other important topics. Elena, I just remembered that you have asked about the efficacy of exactly AstraZeneca vaccine. Head of NCDC, Amiran Gamkrelidze, in our joint morning TV program on Fridays. What was the answer back then?
Yes, Georgi, Amiran Gamkrelidze then told us that SAGE Group at World Health Organization, which unites the most reputable experts and scientists, has given its approval for AstraZeneca to be also used among the elderly and that it is safe to use. We knew nothing about this new concern with the blood clots at that point, unfortunately.
Vaccine is the most important tool to fight this pandemic, definitely. But the already traditional methods against coronavirus must still be in place. I mean, here face masks and sanitizing hands and all that. Mentioning Amiran Gamkrelidze, he was the one to share NCDC's report that the rate of face mask wearing in Georgia reduced to 43%, and that this could lead to worsening of the epidemiological situation in the country.
And this is true, Georgi. According to Friday's data, 395 new cases of coronavirus infection have been detected in Georgia, as a result of which the total number of infections has increased to over 274,000. The death toll also rose by 9 to 3,622. At this stage, 252 people are in quarantine, and 1,324 people are in the hospital under supervision. Another 133 patients are being treated at COVID hotels.
This is a statistics issued by NCDC and reported by BM.G by Saturday early morning. And Elena, do we know what the big picture, I mean the region in this case is,
Yes.
As of Friday, Saturday morning?
Yes, Georgi, and we are constantly updating this information for our readers on BMG, as you have already mentioned, for them to have a fuller picture of what's going on in the region. Overall, we can say that at this point, Georgia is in a much better position by main parameters such as new cases and total cases of infection. But what is catching my eye every time is that our immediate neighbors, Armenia and Azerbaijan, have less death toll in the last 24 hours, and I think the Ministry of Health must analyze this data very thoroughly.
And back to where we started the short review, vaccines and perceptions of these vaccines. What we've heard from the ministers this week was also the emphasis on improved perception.
Yes, but we haven't seen any studies on that yet. The most recent study that we saw was from ACT, which said that every third Georgian citizen living in Tbilisi either is not ready to get a jab, 31%, or has not decided yet, 29%. And this also shows the necessity for the consistent information campaign, which then leads to an informed choice whether or not to be vaccinated, and not a choice that is based only on mostly emotional perceptions instead of rational decisions. And this is exactly what Forbes Health Platform has been advocating since its establishment.
To move to the next topic, and since we have started with good news, let us proceed with the trend and focus the attention of our viewers and followers on the fact that OMV Petrom, the largest energy company in southeastern Europe, announced the signing of the production sharing contract, PSC, for the offshore block, the second in the exclusive economic zone of the Georgian Black Sea. OMV Petrom won in June 2020 the international tender organized by the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia for offshore acreage.
Yes, Christina Burcher, CEO of OMV Petrom, said by signing the PSC for the offshore exploration block, the second in Georgia, we take an important step in the eastern part of the Black Sea in line with our strategy of looking for opportunities in the Black Sea region. We believe that the Black Sea has a high potential for the upstream sector, and with our operating experience for over 40 years in the Romanian offshore area, we have a competitive advantage in evaluating the opportunities of this basin. The PSC provides for exploration, development and production of hydrocarbon resources in the offshore block, the second. It covers a total area of over 5,000 square kilometers, and the water depth varies between 400 and 2,000 meters. As an operator, OMV Petrom will establish an operating company in Georgia, proceed with geoscientific and environmental studies already in 2021, and prepare for a large offshore 3D seismic campaign in 2022, which will allow for a detailed evaluation of this block's potential.
That's correct. And let's give a little background to the story. Exploration in the Romanian continental shelf of the Black Sea started in 1969. The first hydrocarbon discovery was in 1980, and the first production in the Black Sea started in 1987. Currently, OMV Petrom has exploration, development and production operation in the shallow waters. It's so-called Istria block, and exploration operations in partnership with ExxonMobil in deep water areas, Neptune Deep. It's in Romania. oil and natural gas production in shallow waters amounts to approximately 24,000 per day. In 2020, it accounted for almost 17% of the group's domestic production in a joint venture with Total, which is an operator. OMV Petrom is also active in exploration and appraisal activities in the Han Asparuh block in Bulgaria. The total exploration area of OMV Petrom's interest in Romania and Bulgaria amounts to 26,000 square kilometers.
Yeah. Yes, and a short profile about the company itself right here. OMV Petrom is the largest integrated energy company in southeastern Europe with an annual group hydrocarbon production of 53 million BOE in 2020. The group has a refining capacity of nearly 5 million tons annually and operates an 860 megawatt high efficiency power plant. The group is present on the oil products retail market in Romania and neighboring countries through 793 filling stations at the end of 2020 under two brands, OMV and Petrom. Also, OMV, one of the largest listed industrial companies in Austria, holds a 51% stake in OMV Petrom. The Romanian state, through the Ministry of Economy, Energy and Business Environment, holds another 21% of OMV Petrom shares. Fondul Proprietatea holds 7%, and also around 21% is the free float on the Bucharest Stock Exchange and the London Stock Exchange.
Besides Elena, OMV Petrom is the largest contributor to the state budget, with the contributions of approximately 32 billion euro in taxes and dividends paid between 2005 and 2020. Since 2007, OMV Petrom has including corporate responsibility principles into its business strategy. Between 2007 and 2020, the company has allocated approximately 72 million euros to develop communities in Romania, focusing on environmental protection, education, health, and local development. On July 29, 2020, OMV Petrom announced its support for the recommendations issued by the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, and we can definitely say regarding risks and opportunities on climate change.
Yes, Georgi, we provided a profile of the company, and Georgia's Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili also commented on the agreement signed by the Minister of Economy Natia Turnava with OMV Petrom. According to the head of the government, the interest of the Austrian company to start gas exploration works in Georgia reaffirms that the country has a good business environment. But Georgi, to get on to another topic of our review, namely FDI, I can say that this business environment definitely lacks foreign investors and investments at this stage, and in some sectors particularly.
Here are the numbers, not happy saying that, and delivering. FDI in Georgia amounted to US dollars. It's approximately 617 million in 2020. It's for sure preliminary data, down about 53% for the same period of the previous year. It's Geostat report. Transferring of ownership from non-resident to the resident units in several companies is considered to be the main reason for the decline of FDI, which reduced the value of foreign direct investments by 340 million $500,000 US dollars. According to Geostat, 560 million in total investment was reinvestment, which was actually 90% of FDI.
The largest share of FDI was registered in the financial sector, totaling USD 400 million. This sector generated 400 million USD with an year-on-year increase of 47%. Archil Gacechiladze, the CEO of the Bank of Georgia, told BMG that the decline in foreign direct investment was not surprising amid the economic crisis in 2020. He said the government should make the most of this period to attract investment in all sectors. 2020 was a difficult year, probably the most difficult in recent times. So the decline in investments was not very surprising, but we have to use this period to do everything to attract investments in all sectors. Investments are not only an inflow of money, but also new jobs, knowledge transfers, and this is the long-term success of Georgia, said Archil Gachachila, the CEO of the Bank of Georgia.
Anna, you mentioned the sectors that did well. And what about those who did the worst?
Okay, about the sector that did the worst, for that we can give floor to our senior reporter, Anna Taladze.
The volume of foreign direct investment in Georgia is 52.9% less than the 2019 adjusted data. The numbers are especially shocking when it comes to the energy sector. Georgia currently has this picture where energy FDIs stand at $6 million, with a 98% decrease from the previous year. The latest controversial pattern regarding the establishment and continuation of certain HPPs in Georgia has caused an oppositional attitude from the society and posed questions about the necessity of HPPs overall, with many of the HPPs being stopped and delayed. This sparked a conversation about the importance of advancing solar power systems as a replacement. But the question is, can that be a realistic alternative, and if so, at what cost? Why has energy lost its investment potential in Georgia, and what can be a way out? The checkpoints turn to an energy expert, Archil Mamatilashvili, to find out.
The main reasons are uncertainty. Usually, when investors are making investment everywhere in the world, the higher the uncertainty, they consider it's more risky, and they shy away to make investment. There can be several reasons for this uncertainty. One of the major is COVID-19, which caused uncertainty not only in Georgia but worldwide. The second is political uncertainty in Georgia, which lasts for almost 1 year. And the third is uncertainty related to energy sector itself. This is related to the reform which has started but has not been completed so far. And the second is how these investments will be made, what will be the cost of it. Organizations, people, and the public opinion is turning against the energy sector. Not only renewable, not only just price of electricity or other issues which are more social than the related to investment, but to investments as well, especially the renewable energy sector. Really major changes to be made in these directions. We need to publicly communicate to people to understand this is it's very difficult in this situation to invest too many when they don't know, even if they sign the memorandum, that they will be allowed to continue construction or make construction until they make an investment, and they are at the risk of losing. The energy policy itself says that we should focus on renewable energy, but the tools how it will be implemented is not clear yet. To give you an example, is that, for example, if we want to develop renewable energy sources, which are most famous and worldwide now with the highest growth in investment in energy sector, solar panels and wind, right? So we need to develop solar and wind. We need the energy sources which will be, they are intermittent sources of energy, and we need energy sources will be balancing them. They can be either big hydropower plants, or they can be the open cycle gas turbines, which are more flexible in this case. So we need to decide which direction to go. Either we know we need renewable energy, or in this case, we need to take certain measures, including the grid, upgrade of the grid. The second is we don't need renewable energy. We import natural gas or maybe some other source of fuel, fossil fuel, and then we burn it to produce energy. And there are other sources we import energy. And the fourth option is we don't develop at all. We say that we stopped here, which is not acceptable at all. And import is not acceptable because if we need large import volumes, it will be difficult to supply in a stable manner from any country, from any neighboring country. Most of the people mentioned that Russia can be supplied, but Russia is not a good supplier, not only because in the southern region they do not have stable extra volume energy to which our grid is sometimes working in parallel, but also for the political reasons as well. So import is also is not an option for us. So these uncertainties may caused all of them, mixture all of these uncertainties may cause the reason why investors lost appetite to invest in Georgian energy market.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You mentioned a reform that is currently being planned in Georgia with the means to liberalize the energy market. How timely is it to get closer to Europe in this regard?
Just any investor who invests, they need certainty, right? And let's just to look at the structure of how investor will assure it that they will get their investment back. Initially, we had power purchase agreements. The power purchase agreements are well designed for the countries which are not, let's say, well developed, where there are high risks and where the government tries to increase investment in energy from private sector investors from abroad. Then at some time, when at a certain point, when the investor believes that this country is developing, the energy sector is growing, and there's enough assurance that they make investment and they can sell it the market, the government usually creates the, let's say, freer market, liberal market, which is currently now, and then gradually it transforms, so there is no interruption in investments. What happened in Georgia? The PPAs has been stopped, sometimes for the wrong reason, but that's okay. But before stopping PPA, the reform should have been completed. The transfer the Georgia energy sector to the liberal market. So if we had liberal market, and investors say that, oh, it works and we can sell energy, we cannot lose our money, then it will be proper step to make. However, when you stop PPAs, you invest, and you do not have a liberal market, and investors are they don't know how their investments will be returned. They are not sure. So this gap, which now we have, creates additional uncertainty, which I mentioned earlier in the forum. So we either needed to start liberalizing earlier, or we needed to cancel PPA later. Well, and in Georgia, the people are especially against the large hydropower plants. We can avoid large hydropower plants, that said. It's not a paramount that we all need, although some of the countries like Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, Canada, they do have large power plants, large dams. However, and they are operating based on this, the system is operating largely on the hydropower plants. However, and we have other options, and we have to evaluate the price. We need to make evaluation of what is the price we pay for large hydropower plants, what is the price we pay for natural gas, or if we want to change the system, like Sweden, we can build baseload in France, baseload nuclear power plants, and then we can have a larger leeway. In every case, we have to lose something. We have to give up something. It means in terms of environment, in terms of dependency, or in terms of some other issues, right? So after we make assessment all of this, then we say this is our energy policy, and we continue this way. So when we choose what is our preferred option, where we pay the, let's say, lowest price but get highest benefit, then the government or people in energy sector, whoever regulator, should communicate with people, with the public, that these are our choice, and we need to raise foreign investment to build hydropower plants, or private investment to build open stack gas turbines, but our dependence on natural gas will increase. It will increase our price, and it will have some more damage on the environment than it would have been if we had solar, wind, or hydro. But be against everything means either you want to push country to the imports from Russia, or even worse, you need to lead country to stop development. So because if we do not have reliable energy supplies for the future, building capacities, or even, I don't say industrial, even developing, or even consuming in a consumer pattern, we cannot change. You know, the energy sector is a long-term investment. When the people invest money, they get at least 10 years before they return the investment back. This is the best case situation. When they see that such sort of uncertainties, not only political, not only COVID, but related to the sector as well, of course, they shy away from this sector and try to wait and see what happens.
Well, thank you so much for such an extensive comment.
And Georgi, before we move to yet another topic of the checkpoints for today, let me name here the companies that in no particular order but generated the most FDI in the pandemic 2020. And these companies are IDS Borjomi Georgia, GSC Corporation Poti Seaport, GSC RMG Copper, LLC RMG Gold, GSC Daryali Energy, GSC Metro Avrassia Georgia, LLC Enka Renewables, GSC Georgia Capital, and GSC BGO Group.
Worth to mention that it's not a rank, it's just a list.
Yes, no particular order.
Absolutely, and we will be looking at yet another company that has had a potential to contribute to this list, but due to complex reasons we cannot see this name on the list, and that is the Neskra hydropower plant project still.
Yes, Georgi, the main question on the table right now is if the main IFIs like EBRD, ADB and EIB take a decision to support and finance the project, which is evaluated at $1 billion USD.
Elena, we knew that the hydropower plant project was due in 2020 already, but the new date today is 2025. What was the reason for such delay or postponement?
Yes, let me elaborate on that. We can say that there are two main reasons for that, Georgi. There is a protest going on from the side of the local population, which is not new with large HPPs in Georgia on the one hand, and on the other, these financial institutions haven't yet decided whether it is worth financing the project itself. It is clear that such a big investment has no future without long-term credits from these institutions.
Okay, then this is a large and huge investments needed indeed. Here comes my next question then. Do we know anything about the intentions of those IFIs to these days?
I'm pretty proud to tell you that yes, we do have that information, Georgi. What the written comments of these three large international financial institutions show, and they have sent their answers to our analyst Shotat Gachelashvili just a few days ago, is that the positions are very different. ADB, for example, tells us that directly that it's on a due diligence stage and has not yet taken any decision. EBRD tells us that they support the project and are delighted that the company has already met some of the recommendations that EBRD had. And EIB's position on the same issue is that they are currently in talks with the project developers to address some of the issues, like, for example, the issue of accountability. One more worry is that it seems a bit unrealistic to complete the project in 2025 due to the high uncertainty in these COVID times.
Again and again, these are very legitimate concerns on the one hand, and on the other, Georgia definitely needs this project and this hydropower plant.
Can't agree more on this. Georgi, here are the full comments from the IFIs on this very important issue, which our viewers and followers can follow themselves. EBRD is still committed to the project. Recommendations have been fully adopted and the management action plan is in the place, and EBRD can report good progress. Neskra HPP is working on recommendations and majority of the recommendations are already implemented. ADB has not taken any decision to finance this project. We still remain in the process of conducting due diligence, and the project has to go through multiple stages of internal approvals before we can approach our board of directors for approval. Should ADB decide to fund the project at the end of its due diligence process, it will be ensured that all of ADB's policies will be fully adhered to and all stakeholders and compensation claimants' complaints are satisfactorily resolved by JSC Neskra Hydropower Company in line with our policy. The EIB is closely working with the project promoter, other financiers and all of the stakeholders concerned to address the different issues related to this project, including those raised by the IFI's accountability mechanisms. Large infrastructure projects are complex and their completion depends on many factors, noting that many actions in relation to the project are still ongoing, and given the additional uncertainties brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, the EIB is at this stage unable to address this question.
On this background, the high-level visit on the side of Hungary is very encouraging. I was a part of the closed moderating session that Minister Peter Szijjártó has with Georgian business community. The comment afterwards was very interesting, and here it is for our viewers and followers.
I'm delighted to once again host our distinguished friend, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Hungary, His Excellency Peter Szijjártó. Frequent visits of the Minister is a clear message of Hungary's strong support to Georgia and an indication of result-oriented partnership between our countries. We welcome Hungary's upcoming presidency in the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe and express readiness to continue close dialogue with our Hungarian partners in this organization as well as in all relevant multilateral formats. We sincerely value that Hungary has always been vocal in supporting all important issues for Georgia.
We consider the Eastern Partnership Program as the best tool to strengthen European Union. Unfortunately, European Union kept on losing from its economic and political strength and position of the global politics and global economy, and we have to turn this tide, and we have to start re-strengthening Europe in political and economic terms as well. And I think the only way to do so is to accelerate the enlargement procedure of the European Union and to look for new partners and new allies and new friends in this regard. And Georgia is one of the best candidates in this regard.
And let me tease in your exclusive interview right here that will follow the checkpoints directly. But before that, let me mention what Forbes said about Bidzina Ivanishvili, Georgia's only billionaire and the former prime minister. Mr. Ivanishvili's net worth has reduced to 3.3 billion USD.
No worries, guys. His assets are reduced by 1.5 billion annually. According to Forbes, Ivanishvili's property is at an 11-year minimum. Bidzina Ivanishvili dropped from 349th to 906th place in the ranking of the richest people on the planet, although the publication does not dig into details of why the decrease in his property has happened.
Well, meanwhile, over 567 billion USD has been amassed by the 10 richest people in the world in less than a year. To put that into perspective, that's more than sevenfold the wealth accumulated by the top 10 in the time period prior. As just one example, Elon Musk witnessed his wealth increased at least 500% in the last year. Amazon's Jeff Bezos has earned a cool extra around 69 billion USD with a net worth of 182 billion USD. Jeff Bezos is the wealthiest in the world, and our viewers can now see on their screens the full visualization of Forbes' real-time billionaires list.
And I think this is the right time to offer our viewers and followers Forbes teaser and give them the taste of what might await them with the new issue of Forbes Georgia.
Vaccination has already started in more than 108 countries of the world, and out of these 100 countries, many are poorer than Georgia. That is, they have fewer financial and economical opportunities than us and still manage to vaccinate a certain part of the population and start the vaccination process. Georgia without vaccine. That is the main topic of the March special issue of Forbes Georgia, where the main question is how effectively did we manage the private non-budget funds accumulated in the Stop Cow Fund in the March issue of Forbes Georgia.
Meet the crypto billionaires. It seems that the stock market gave investors a reason to smile last year, though still no one smiles like the owner of cryptocurrencies. Trump, on the other hand, has problems, and the election was not the only thing he lost last year, as more than $100 million in revenue from his businesses simply evaporated. Forbes Georgia also counted the ratings of Georgian wine and alcohol producers, and as a result, the ranking is headed by Kakhetian traditional winemaking. In the columns section, you will read Elena Gwanjilashvili's opinion piece on the topic, Georgia as a transit logistics hub. You will also read The Summary of Democracy by Tamas Daushvili. Buka Petriashvili counted the geopolitical kilometers. A new concept, new environment, new advantages. These three elements are combined in one space by TBC Bank and continue to create comfort for customers. As a result, we received new concept branches, which TBC has already opened in 6 Tbilisi locations. Read more in the new issue of Forbes Georgia. In addition, Forbes Georgia talked to POTI TIZ director David Ebralidze about what projects we should expect from the team and what the pandemic has changed. You will also read an interesting interview with Dea Babaskiri, a hair transplant expert who introduced innovative hair transplant technologies to Georgia. And before we present the updated list of successful Georgian 30 under 30, we will introduce you to the list of American youth. How did the coronavirus harm the Georgian economy? Why do statistics deceive us? And the consequences of energy occupation and crisis, which are gradually escalating. For this and many more insights into the business and economic affairs, read new issue of Forbes Georgia.
And since we are on the billionaire territory, Georgi, let's mention here Ukrainian billionaire Igor Kolomoisky as well, who was recently banned by the US to enter the country. The most important point here in the checkpoints is that we give the perspective of Ukrainian billionaires' business in Georgia. Here is the full story.
Last Friday, the United States banned the entry of controversial Ukrainian billionaire Kolomoisky, accusing him of corruption and of undermining democracy. Under U.S. sanctions laws against corruption, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that Kolomoisky, his wife, and children would not be admitted into the United States. These sanctions specifically related to Kolomoisky's tenure as a regional governor in 2014 and 2015. With the State Department saying he was involved in significant corruption and used his political influence and official power for his personal benefit. Secretary of State voiced broader concerns about Kolomoisky, the former owner of the country's largest private bank, which was nationalized after he was accused of siphoning $5.5 billion. I also want to express concern about Kolomoisky's current and ongoing efforts to undermine Ukraine's democratic processes and institutions, which pose a serious threat to its future, Secretary of State said in a statement. According to Forbes, Kolomoisky's fortune is $1.2 billion, making him the 6th richest citizen of Ukraine. Until 2015, Kolomoisky held the post of governor of Dnepropetrovsk. The businessman accumulated his property in the early 90s with the founding of Privat Bank. The bank was the leading financial institution in Ukraine and had 1/3 share of total Ukrainian deposits on it. In 2016, based on the results of a multi-year investigation into money laundering, the Ukrainian government ousted Kolomoisky and his business partner, Gennady Boloklyubov, from Privat Bank and nationalized the bank. In 2017, a UK court ruled to freeze $2.5 billion worth of assets owned by Kolomoisky and his business partner. In parallel with these processes, the billionaire left the country and moved to Switzerland. But after the election of Vladimir Zelensky as president, he returned to Ukraine. An important part of Kolomoisky's property is in Georgia. His activities in Georgia started in 2006 with Tau Privat Bank, after named Privat Bank. This bank operated on the Georgian market until late 2014. At the end of 2014, the bank was acquired by Bank of Georgia for 92 million lari. Privat Bank's annual loan income was 100 million lari at the time. Georgian Manganese is one of the largest miners in Georgia and the largest producer of ferroalloys. The company combines several main facilities, including the Zestapony ferroalloy plant, which produces the company's final products, ferromanganese. The group includes the Chiatura mining enrichment plant and the Vartsikhe HPP, which produces energy. In 2016, the company was fined on an unprecedented scale, more than 400 million lari. This was due to the neglect of environmental conditions. In 2017, according to a court ruling, Nicholas Chikovani, a manager at the company, was appointed to repair the damage. Following the court ruling, he was given 3 years to rectify the irregularities in various areas. With this decision, Kolomoisky was removed from the management of the group, although he remained its owner. In 2020, the Tbilisi City Court issued a new ruling extending the term of office of the company's manager, Nicholas Chikovani, until May 2023. As it turns out, Kolomoisky's activities in Georgia are not only related to ferroalloys, he's also engaged in cryptocurrency mining. The matter concerns Block Power Ltd, founded in 2017. According to the financial report, the company's revenue in 2018 was 85 million lari and in 2019 was 19 million lari. According to the representatives of Kolomoisky, the billionaire has invested $50 million in this project. The company acquired 3,533 bitcoins during the mining process. Currently, the price of these bitcoins is 589 million lari, although the price of these assets was several times lower during the period of their acquisition. Kolomoisky's sanctioning was indirectly echoed by the Ukrainian presidency. The Ukrainian presidency released a statement saying that Ukraine must overcome a system dominated by oligarchs if the ex-Soviet country wants to achieve economic prosperity and Euro-Atlantic integration.
So this is all for today. Follow us on BMG and Forbes.g.
No, this is not all for today. Yes, we're saying goodbye until next Sunday, but you can watch our exclusive with Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Hungary, Peter Szijjártó, which we are leaving you off with.
Mr. Szijjártó, thank you so much again
Thank
for
you.
this opportunity. We're glad to see you here
Thank
in
you so
Georgia,
much.
Tbilisi. So, please brief us, first of all, about the purpose of your visit. For us, it was a quite short notice, but tell us about the purpose, how it was planned and scheduled, and what are your goals here?
Hungary and Georgia enjoy a relationship based on mutual trust and mutual respect. We have no open issues in our political agenda because we don't spend too much time with lecturing and criticizing each other. We always respect that it is the Georgians who know the best what is good for the Georgians, and Georgian governments never feel that there would be the necessity to tell us how to accommodate our own lives. So it is a political relationship based on mutual respect. This is most important. This gives us the chance to take the benefit of it. That's why economic cooperation is becoming more and more vivid. We work a lot on helping Hungarian companies to be successful on your market, be it pharmaceutical, food industry, water management, or defense industry. We have even opened a credit line with the Hungarian Exim Bank, $140 million altogether, to finance the business-to-business cooperation between Georgian and
So just
Hungarian
for
company.
Georgia and
for
Hungary?
Georgia and Hungary,
$140 million.
$150 million. I hope it's going to be exhausted quickly, because then we can open the new credit line. So on the other hand, you know, we support a lot the Eastern Partnership program of the European Union, in which Georgia is definitely a key stakeholder, and we want to see the integration process of Georgia when it comes to European and Euro-Atlantic procedures to be successful, and to see you working closer together with
Can we consider
with the
that
EU and
mostly
NATO.
your agenda was economic?
Yeah, we can say that.
We can say that. But at the same time, Hungary is facing, it's not a challenge, it's your position for 2021 about the chairmanship for the European Council. Was that a topic of the
Sure.
discussion with the Prime Minister and the other representatives of the government?
Sure, obviously we are preparing for our chairmanship in the Ministerial Commission of the Council of Europe. Georgia is part of the
Yes.
organization, and I know that there are very important issues for Georgia on the agenda, and of course we are working together with David Zalkaliani on these issues. We have set 3 very important priorities, which I guess are in line with the political focuses of your government. First, the family. The institution of family is being somewhat under attack recently, and we in Hungary carry out a very strong subsidy policy for families, and I understand family is taken seriously by the government here. Second, the protection of Christianity. You Georgians and we Hungarians know very well the significance of the Christian heritage to be preserved. And the third is the issue of the national minorities. We see massive violations of rights of those persons who belong to national minorities. And this is something that we have to push back. Otherwise, such kind of violations of rights can become root causes for further conflicts, which we have to avoid.
A lot in common.
Yeah, basically we can say that.
Mr. Minister, you're traveling from Israel to Georgia, which drives all of us, I mean media guys, covering last period, all this pandemic issue, Israel as the most prominent and leader worldwide in vaccination program. I'm not asking about the details of your visit in Israel, that's your issues, but at the same time, let's begin talking about pandemic itself, how it reflected to the European countries, and how was Hungary dealing with it. And I think Israel is a good point where you're coming from. They will finalize vaccination in a few days.
Soon, yeah. Yeah, you are right. Mostly the reason of our visit to Israel was to set up further cooperation regarding the fight against COVID. You know, they have a fantastic track record when it comes to vaccination. More than 5 million people has received at least the first doses out of 9.5 million, so that's huge. On the other hand, they are introducing the so-called green card system, which is to our interest of ours. We give a ID.
It's sort of COVID passport?
Yeah, we can say that. We can say that. But this is mostly for internal use, as far as I understand now. But it can be it can be internationalized, of course. We have been introducing the green card system in Hungary as well. So far, it's only a plastic card because we have not made the decision what kind of benefits the card holders can have. It's based on a national consultation which is going on. In our case, we understood it very clearly that the only real solution for this crisis is the vaccination. You know that the European Commission has launched a centralized procurement of the vaccines, which failed because compared...
It's failed, but no delay. You consider it as a failed?
I mean, these kind of delays mean failure. You know, because what happened was that compared to the expectations and compared to the contracts, the manufacturers deliver much less vaccine and much later, much slower. And you know, in our case, for example, today we had 9,000 new cases, 170 people died. There are almost 10,000 people treated in a hospital. 10% of them are on ventilators. So we can't wait. I mean, we can't wait on contracts. We can't wait on delayed shipments. So what we have done was the following: that we signed contracts both with Russia and China. We contracted altogether 7 million doses, which make it possible for 3.5 million people to be vaccinated. I can tell you that the Chinese deliver well ahead of schedule. So they have already delivered 1 million shots 20 days before the deadline. And you know, when 170 people die on a daily basis, when shipment comes 20 days earlier, you can count the benefit. On the other hand, the Russians are doing their best to deliver on time as well. They are around at 70% of delivery. So we manage now the situation with the Eastern vaccines. But had we not contracted these volumes from Russia and China, now we would be in a very, very bad situation.
Mr. Minister, you personally were involved in
I personally negotiated
these relations, and Hungary was the first among EU countries certifying Chinese vaccine, am I right?
And Russian.
And Russian already certified. Okay. At the same time, which Chinese vaccine is Sinopharm, and which is already, and it's the first.
It's being already used in Hungary, both. You know, in the European Union, there are two ways how vaccines can be, let's say, registered or certified. Well, the first is the normal procedure, or let's say the ordinary procedure, through the European Medicines Agency. The second way, during state of emergency, national regulators are allowed to issue so-called emergency use authorization. And our experts went to Russia went to China. They went to the sites, they visited, they checked the procedure, they checked the documentation, they had the necessary consultations, based on which they made their responsible decision saying that the emergency use authorization is being issued. So now we have been using Russian, we have been using Chinese. Prime Minister himself was vaccinated by the Chinese vaccine, Sinopharm. And so far what I can tell you is that our experiences are positive.
Are you vaccinated already personally?
No, I'll be vaccinated next week.
So it's sort of schedule how it's following,
Actually,
within the population.
We have a very clear order.
Okay.
The first category was exclusively for the healthcare staff. So they were the first. We vaccinated the healthcare staff. Second was the inhabitants of the homes of elderly and those who work there. The third category is the age groups above 60 and those who suffer from chronic disease. And the fourth group is the so-called critical infrastructure, where the government members are involved.
Critical infrastructure.
Because we are critically important.
You are. Okay.
To be modest enough. To be modest enough.
You had a few hours presence in Georgia, but you managed to meet with a part of Georgian business community. I had a chance to attend. Thank you so much for that. And at the same time, your presentation was fascinating. What a feedback I just was briefed by my colleagues and friends. You mentioned about the room. You mentioned about the space within the possible cooperation between Hungary and Georgia, where we see below zero political agenda during these years, ages maybe. You are 10 or 11 years heading the Hungary, I mean your political force. But what I remember, I do not remember any political case between these two countries. Where do you see the room at the head of ministry which is responsible for all the external economic relations, including investment, etc., between Hungary and Georgia?
Look, I think it's obvious that we have to take into consideration in which sectors we are successful enough, where we are brave and ready to offer our technologies and products which supposed
Two
to be
of them are
competitive.
here. It's automotive industry and pharmacy. Pharmacy is quite huge in Georgia as well.
Yeah, pharmaceutical. Regarding pharmaceutical industry, we are number 19 globally when it comes to export. Two of the biggest Hungarian pharmaceutical companies have been present on the Georgian market already. They rank among the top 10, both of them, when it comes to market shares. Next one is CVK Aviation, obviously Wizz Air. It's a Hungarian company. Is being the market leader on the civic aviation front here in Georgia. They have a big base in Kutaisi, from where they cover 38 destinations under normal circumstances. Then we have the defense industry, where the extension of your Ministry of Defense and our defense research company have a good cooperation, and the tests have already taken place. Water industry, definitely we have been involved already in upgrading the water network of Tbilisi. Now the same kind of project in Kutaisi is to be launched. And of course food industry is extremely important both ways. We respect Georgian cuisine a lot. We respect Georgian agricultural products a lot. We are relatively strong on that as well. So these are the areas where we have to put the most emphasis on in the future.
Okay. My next question goes to two most prominent things. Well, I don't know where our followers or viewers are in charge that Richter is Hungary origin pharma company, and which is quite well presented on Georgian markets for ages. But at the same time, what are perspectives of automotive industry, which is top and number one in Hungary? And Mr. Minister, do you have any specific ideas about the possible cooperation in Georgia, with Georgia and in Georgia, while everything is changing? I'm talking about traditional automotive industry, which is moving to electric industry, actually.
Yeah, you're right. Automotive industry is number one in Hungary. 30% of industrial performance comes from the automotive sector, which is a huge slice. And of course, now the main target is to transform our automotive industry from traditional to electromobility. We have been making big steps towards that direction in cooperation with those 5 OEMs which have been present in Hungary, namely Audi, Daimler, Stellantis, Suzuki and BMW. We were successful, thanks God, to be able to convince them to locate their electromobility related activities to Hungary. And if Georgian companies can contribute to the success of the transformation of this industry of ours, that gives a huge potential.
It's not your first visit in Georgia?
Oh, no. Fifth, sixth.
Fifth, sixth, okay. And I'm more than sure it's not the last.
Hopefully.
But yes, tell me a bit more about Georgia's geostrategic location. You mentioned during the private meeting with the business community about the importance and potential of Georgia within the region, of its hub location and this perspective. Where do you see how Georgia can attract more in these regards?
You know, for us the Caucasian region plays an important role because of energy and transportation reasons. You know, energy supply in Hungary is a critical issue, and in entire Central Europe because of the defense, or let's say one-sided dependence position, of course. The Southern Gas Corridor constitutes a new reality now. Southern Gas Corridor goes through Georgia, and it gives us the chance to diversify our sources and routes when it comes to gas supply of the country. On the other hand, we have made an agreement in Azerbaijan just recently that Hungarian companies will be involved in the reconstruction process of Karabakh.
Yeah.
And I understand that those transportation corridors which are going to be set up there make more sense if they are continued towards either direction, but Georgia definitely. And this gives us the chance to invest jointly in infrastructural developments in the region.
And you consider some sort of joint ventures of participating in Karabakh region as well, together with Georgian reconstruction?
Well, I had 7 companies accompanying me this week to Baku to see how Hungarian companies can be involved.
You met with President Aliyev?
Sure, I did, and I met the Foreign Minister and the Minister of Public Works as well, and there we agreed that they have an openness to include Hungarian companies, but I'm pretty sure that when these Hungarian companies, locate their capacities here, they will still need suppliers and subcontractors, and that opens up the possibility for companies in the region, no doubt.
Georgia, yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, and I hope your office will follow, all the activities coming from Georgian companies, and we will keep you posted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.